go ahead and get started, I'd like to introduce you to two of our alumni from the class of '05, Barry Gabay, and Trevor Piersol from the class of '06. These two young men have got a marvelous experience that they're going to share with you today as part of our inviting our alumni back to have our lunchtime presentations. So I'll turn it over to Barry and Trevor.
So first, thanks to everyone for coming out.
Thanks for having us.
And thanks to Mr. Wall for having us. And I don't know if I would have given up my lunch when I was a student here, but I'm glad you guys came out. We appreciate it. Barry and I just got back from about 4 months traveling in Asia, and we wanted to talk today about trekking. Trekking is like the international term for basically backpacking, walking from place to place, camping, but all the Europeans call it trekking.
Everyone outside of Americans call it trekking. It's weird.
Backpacking trekking is something that Barry and I have been doing all our lives. It's one of the things we love to do, and we've done a lot in the U.S. I'd never done it overseas, but it's a really cool thing to do when you're overseas, to get out of the city. And I know a lot of you are probably going to study abroad when you go to college. I hope you do. I highly encourage it. And what we wanted to show you is that there's something else you can do while you're abroad. You can get out off the beaten path and go camping and get out of the city. So we did. You want to tell me about the two different?
Yes. First off, our first place was China, obviously, and we went to 2 different mountain ranges. The first one we did was this area right here in western Sichuan. Y'all heard of like Sichuan chicken? You know, it's so spicy, right? That's what it's so we started off in the north, basically worked our way south, and we'll show y'all some pictures now.
Right. So yeah, just to recap what Barry was saying, we were in China in the beginning, and this mountain range is called the Chonglai Range, and it runs north-south, but it's before the Himalayas. The Himalayas are over here. So this is the first place we hit, first place we went trekking.
The first place we went was called Tagong, and it's basically this village out in the middle of these grasslands, middle of nowhere, and it's run by hundreds of monks. It's really cool, and you can see up on the hills there's lots of prayer flags, a whole lot of prayer flags over there.
So this area of China, once you get out to western Sichuan, it's basically Tibet. It's Tibetan culture, it's Tibetan people, and very religious, lots of monasteries. And that's not the best picture.
You can hang out with a bunch of locals, and it's really cool hanging out with these monks, because you think that they're really pious and everything, but they're just really they're guys. They're really, really nice guys, and they are pious. But they're fun to be around.
This was the monastery where we started our trek from. So we're in the grasslands now, and then we started walking out into nothing, basically.
And this was like an 8-hour hike, and we had to come up over that thing.
No, this part.
Which everyone makes it look cool.
Yeah, so we hiked over this saddle into the next valley.
Did they speak English?
No, I'll talk about that. It's a good question. We hiked into this valley. This is where we camped the first night. There's our little high-tech Western tent. And when we went in this valley, we ran into some Tibetan nomads who were yak herders, and they move every month or so, and they have like 100 yaks, and they live in a tent. So this was the wonderful family that brought us in and fed us yak butter tea and barley porridge. And
none of them spoke a word of English. None of them spoke any Mandarin except for this little kid here who spoke a little bit of Mandarin, a lot of hand motions. Luckily, Trevor's really good at Mandarin, so
yeah. So I speak a little Mandarin, so I would talk to him, and he would translate back into Tibetan to his parents and his brother.
Still got that. Much of that. And she, like you said, they're yak herders, and she milks them every morning. And she actually yelled at me because I got too close to the yaks. And there happened to be some hot springs in our campsite, so we hung out with this guy who was using it as a bath. And
they had the best camping spot in his family because they were right next to a hot springs, so they could just chill in hot springs all day.
And there's a large glacier at that campsite too, which was great. Next night, the 2-night hike, made a great fire in paradise. And then the third day, we hiked out and hung out with some more nomads. And they were really, really cool.
They're just like, they're so hospitable and like, as soon as they see you, they welcome you in and won't let you stop eating until you're about to die. And these kids are just so cute.
So that was the first trek. And then we headed south to a place called Yading, which is down here, a little bit more mountainous, a little bit more, snow-capped peaks. And hung out with some Tibetans there.
By the way, this is the place for you English students. This is the place where some say James Hilton got the inspiration for his novel. What's it called? Paradise Lost.
No, not Paradise.
No, sorry. Not Milton.
Lost Horizon.
James Hilton wrote Lost Horizon, which is the novel about. Thanks, Piersol. Anyway, it's supposed to be the Shangri-La of China.
Hanging out, competitive banter.
This was the China versus America arm wrestling match.
Stood up for the good guys.
He didn't let us down, don't worry.
And then we hiked up, and we were the only people around at this point. And, that's basically our surroundings for about 24 hours. It was really incredible.
You think about China, you think it's like crazy cities, really populated, but in the West, there's so much open space. It's really cool.
So those are prayer flags too?
Yeah, thanks. These are prayer flags, which you'll see a lot of, and in Tibetan culture, they put them up in sacred places at the top of a mountain or in a beautiful place.
And at the bottom of that little plain, that was our secluded campsite. Just me and this guy. It's nice. So then, the highlight of our trip, perhaps, our longest trek, was about a month, and we were around Mount Everest and trekking through the Himalayas, and it was a life-changing experience, I would say.
Yeah, so some of y'all probably know Mount Everest is right on the border of Nepal and China, basically Nepal and Tibet, basically right there. So we started out in Kathmandu, we took a bus, and then we walked to Mount Everest over the course of a month.
The bus was fantastic. This is it. Trevor had the luxury of actually sitting in a seat inside the bus, whereas I was on the roof of the bus for 10 hours. And that is an adjacent bus to us. We're shouting Nepali at each other. And
Mary was on top of that for 10 hours.
Great. Lovely.
Are you strapped in?
No, not at all.
No way.
But there is like 40 people around you, so I mean, we're kind of punched together. It was good. Meanwhile,
and I thought, I got to see, I'm in good shape, but when the bus filled up, a family walked in and they threw their baby at me and said, "Here, take my baby." So I had to carry this dude for like 10 hours. But he was sick and he was sneezing on me the whole time. And I got sick like 3 days later and messed up my trek a little bit, but it was alright. It was cute.
Well, the trek started, and at first, like I said, this was a 30-day trek, hiking the whole time, and it starts off like this just really lush greenery, as you'll see. We had lots of different ecosystems that we walked through.
Yeah, Nepal is one of the most diverse, ecologically diverse countries in the world.
These kids, Nepal is are obsessed with WWE wrestling. It's insane. Never heard of LeBron James. Don't know who Michael Jordan is. Kobe Bryant. John Cena is a god there. Who, if y'all don't know, which you might not.
I never even heard of
He's
John
a pro wrestler. Modern day agriculture. And the famous Sherpas that you may or may not have heard of. These guys carry just unfathomably large loads up, 15,000 foot, elevation up. They really are unbelievable. I couldn't even lift one of those. They're hiking.
Because if you're hiking Everest, there's no road, there's no airport. So everywhere you go, everything you see has been brought in on someone's back or on a yak. And they carry big industrial ovens to the villages, computers, and all the wood. It's insane.
And it's all uphill. That's a guy with a food hat. Put on and there's we're starting to get up to higher elevations, and stuff like that.
So now we're starting to glimpse the Himalayas.
That's Blanc, which I think is one of the most beautiful mountains I've ever seen. It looks like the Paramount Mountain, from studio. That's our friend Nick, who was hiking with us for a while. But haven't reached the tree line yet, and there's lots of trees.
These are probably the last trees we'll see for a few weeks after this point.
That's Trevor in his really cool hat.
I'll stop.
Wisdom say stick.
The sun is intense up there.
We were there in this would have been October. Yeah, which is prime season.
That's the photo contest winner, I think. Barry took that one. I just think just the mountain showing through the clouds.
So this was our first summit, or our first attempted summit. We hiked up for, we were at about 17,000 feet at this point, but we got whited out and we couldn't see 10 feet in front of us. So the motto is anyone can get up a mountain, not anyone can get down the mountain. So you gotta, safety first. So we turned around, unfortunately. And we later met a 60-year-old British woman who, said, "Oh, did you get to the summit? It was great up there."
How was your breathing? How was the oxygen?
It was tough. I mean, there's, luckily we hiked in. At this point, when we were at high elevation, we'd already been hiking for about 8 or 9 days, and we were in pretty good shape. Aside from all the stuff we were doing in China beforehand. That being said, still every step you're taking when you're above 10,000 feet feels like you're literally walking like this. It's really hard.
And once we got above 10,000 feet or so, you can only gain 300 or 400 meters a day. So we were only hiking for like 2 hours, and then you have to stop in order to acclimatize. Altitude sickness is a big problem. You see the rescue helicopters coming in and out all the time, where you just have to be careful and acclimatize.
Like 5 or 6 people died while we were there. I mean, you just have to listen to your body and stuff.
Yeah, people just go too fast.
Friendly yak. And we were on our way to something called Alumni Base Camp at this point. And I've never been in anything like this before.
That's a great camera.
Yeah. Actually, no, this was like a cheap.
Really?
I mean, the scenery takes itself.
Oh, okay.
I am not a good photographer at all.
Oh, anybody know what that is?
Dumb.
Anyone know what it's used for?
Fuel.
Fire, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Very good. Natural resources. So we did 3 passes, which are basically a trail that goes over top of a mountain, and this was going up the first one. We had to So,
Is that your guy?
Well, I
No,
believe
we
we were
haven't.
hiking over. Which one was this?
this was
Himalaya. I think we went up over here. So that was the toughest pass. Yeah, we were struggling.
Y'all went without a guy?
No.
We did. Yeah, we didn't have a guide, but you don't need one.
Even though Barry promised his mother he would go.
Yeah, that's true.
How'd
We told her afterwards that we
Is
didn't
the
have
trail
it.
that well?
Didn't they pay for it though?
Your mother paid.
they really did not have the confidence that they'd get this done on themselves.
No, you don't need a guide if you know, if you are fit and it's so busy. There's all kinds of people on the trail. It's really easy to find your way. This was some sort of feline creeping around. Perhaps a Tibetan snow leopard.
Planet Earth? Alright. Okay. Alright, well, this was our hike really quickly. We started over here, came up around here, and went back. And that was about 100 miles. 120. It was a
Yeah, so
long.
we're creeping up over the pass. Up at the pass is just, that's the view from the first pass. Unbelievable. We're blending into the rocks. Speaks for itself pretty much.
And this was our first glacier crossing.
Yeah, this is cool.
Doesn't look like your typical glacier. It's actually up here are the glacial deposits called a moraine. It takes geography.
Yeah. Yeah, this is actually all ice, but it's just covered in all the rubble and stuff that it had churned up when it was moving down the valley.
We made our way to Everest Base Camp, and that's what Everest Base Camp looks like.
Oh yeah. So that's 5,500 meters, like 18,000 feet. Pretty hard to breathe up there. I had a killer headache.
Did you guys have to have any kind of a permit?
Yeah.
For the national park that we were in, we did just one fee, $30 or something, and a permit. But to go to base camp, that's included. You don't need anything extra for that. If you hike up past base camp, you need permits.
And you want to climb that mountain, you need about $40,000.
Exactly.
That's not extra.
This is actually the first day after base camp where people hike up if they're hiking Everest. It's called the Kulu Ice Fall, and it's one of the most dangerous parts of the trek because there's all kinds of places where you can fall into a bottomless pit right there, and it happens a lot. And that's then they go up there to the South Pole to the
How do
summit.
you keep from falling into the bottomless pit?
I don't know. They have ropes, I think. I mean, you're roped up.
Hundreds of people have died on that mountain, and most of their bodies are still up there. Pretty crazy.
If you are interested in Mount Everest, you should read a book called Into Thin Air by John Krakauer. Some of y'all probably read it. It's amazing.
That is Everest Base Camp.
Did you guys read that before you went?
Yeah.
I had read it.
Stupidly, we did.
Yeah.
So you shared about pulmonary embolisms with your parents before you left.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My parents had not read it.
Did you get more supplies there?
In base camp?
Yeah.
Supplies?
Yeah, food.
Not here, but all along the way there's towns where you can. So right before there's a town. Yeah.
So you didn't run out of food.
Villages with supplies that have been carried in by porters.
Those people that were about to summit, all those.
No, because they summit in the spring, in March. But this was like a Spanish film crew that was doing some project there. So there were people there, but they weren't climbing it. There she is.
Summit. That's a better picture of the summit.
This is the
Top of the world.
the Hillary Step right there.
South Pole. And that's looking the other way. We had to summit a mountain to see that. But, just the scenery out there is really cool.
This is another huge glacier.
This was the owner of a guest house we stayed in. He'd only summited Everest 11 times.
Every Sherpa you meet out there has done it like 5 or 6 times. We met the world record holder for the fastest time.
Yeah. Up and back in 18 hours.
What was the temperature like? It was October, but it looks like
It was during the day. It was warm with the sunlight. probably in the 40s, 50s, but at night it got really cold, really, really cold.
This is another pass we had to cross. Totally snow covered, as you can see, but a lot of fun. We came from down there. A lot of fun. And another, this was actually a pretty intense glacier crossing. We basically had to get around there. Long, arduous day. Actually, it's a good question. There's rocks called cairns. Yeah, we do have a picture. So I'll answer that question. Yeah, these things. So they kind of mark the trail around, so you kind of gotta look for them.
So someone could mess up everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you have a compass or anything?
Yeah, good road pick there.
Barry, question, did you guys have a compass
Compass or-
GPS system?
We had a map, topo map, and a compass.
Oh. GPS would work.
We didn't have a GPS.
But the
We're very poor.
so what? Good question. And just beautiful scenery. Beautiful scenery. I recognize that picture. Yeah. And that's going up to another pass. And I actually just sent that picture to the Times Dispatch for their back page thing. This was about 1 month in, no showers.
We hadn't showered in 30 days.
Faring pretty well considering.
My beer's coming in pretty good.
Why not?
Staring off into Mount Everest.
We all bought matching counterfeit down jackets in Kathmandu with the most obnoxious colors.
And the last day, we finally reached civilization. That's the airport. And it's the most dangerous airport in the world. Denver. And you can't really tell. The grade of that runway is about like this, and you can see it goes straight off the mountain. So good luck.
This valley down here is strewn with plane parts. It's really
Did you fly out of it?
yeah.
Yeah.
I can tell you about that. So that was it. Back to Kathmandu and back to civilization.
Is that where else we're
That's it.
Kathmandu, yeah.
That's it.
Yes, questions, please. Yes, sir.
All right, explain a little the process for planning for a trip like this. Did you use books? Were you talking to people? The internet? The videos? I mean, how did you go about these treks planning?
That's a good question. It's hard to find accurate information. We started out on the internet and books. We bought a guidebook that was helpful. But really, where we found most of our useful information was when we got to Kathmandu and we went around different hostels talking to people who had just got back from treks, talking to tourists, not guides, because the guides will give you the wrong information. They're trying to make money. So talking to people who have just done it, who have the most up-to-date information, that was really the most useful thing for us.
Just going over to any country in the world, knowing that you want to, hike or climb or kayak, do whatever. The best information you can possibly get is just talking to people directly once you get there.
Any questions?
How often were you able to make contact with your loved ones back home?
Out in Everest, on our trek, there was satellite internet at a couple villages. So we had like 2 opportunities, but it was like $5 a minute or something like that. So just never.
Just to answer that on behalf of my family, I guess what he told my mother, something like, all right, our flight is due back the 17th into New York. If you don't hear from me by the 20th, start to get worried. 3 days after it's supposed to be back.
Do y'all know how long it's going to take?
He knew roughly.
We knew roughly, but
We gave ourselves plenty of leeway.
Because it doesn't look like it's too cold over there.
Sorry?
It doesn't look like it's too cold over there in October.
Yeah.
this was in China where it was much warmer.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, and this was in September.
And about 12,000 feet lower.
Okay.
So you guys said that you had gone trekking before. So I guess how does this compare to other treks that you've been on?
Altitude-wise, I mean, it's a lot tougher just because of the breathing. I mean, technical difficulty. I think we've done stuff out west that might be as difficult.
Yeah, I mean, the big difference for me was like you're trekking where people live, and you're going through villages, or you're meeting nomads. And in America, all the trekking I've done in a national park or something, there's no people. It's just wilderness, and you're camping and bringing your own gear. In Nepal, I forgot to mention, like we weren't carrying all of our food. There were little villages run by the locals where you could get food, have a place to, have a little hut to stay in at night. So that's what's a lot different. You don't have to carry as much. It's not pure wilderness. There's humans,
But the hardest days that I've ever done, you've ever done, I'm sure. The hardest days of me and, was definitely in the fall.
Just the altitude.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, I want to do another part of Nepal next time. But Everest I highly recommend it, but it's expensive. It's a big trip. I'm glad I did it, but next time I'll go to a different place. Thanks so much.
Any other questions for him? Before any of you venture off on one of these on your own, there's another book you might want to read too. It's called Into the Wild. Any of you?
Cautionary.
But it's the point of being staying connected to family. You don't do these kind of trips by yourself. You put yourself at extreme risk. And staying connected with your family, that other peace of mind, at least they know potentially where you may be along the way. And that makes me over cautious, but having done this myself in New Zealand and Australia, it's important to stay connected as well as you can, as opposed to thinking, mom doesn't need to know. There are some things mothers never need to know. But staying connected is not one.
Trevor gave me the schedule and where they were planning to hike, and said you won't hear from me for 6 weeks.
In the Bangladesh airport, they had free Wi-Fi.
That's a prerequisite for Alan ever doing something.
But no.
Were you safe everywhere you went, pretty much?
Yeah.
Safe?
No animals, no people?
They pretty much killed all the wild animals. So. But no, we're very safe. I mean, there are countries where trekking is not as safe, but China is an extremely safe country, as is Nepal.
We almost got attacked by a wild dog about 30 seconds after that. They wanted it. No, they probably did.
And another thing to remember, at high elevation, you're not going to outrun anything.
Yeah.
So those pictures with the yak and the other stuff, if they decide to go aggressive,
Toast. You're going one step at a time.
all right, let's give them a